It's too bad nobody's written a book yet on how to do things in order so you wouldn't have to do things twice. I hate doing things twice. Oh no! Oh no!
What?
Here she is, 1964 C10. We're gonna put the Duramax and the two-wheel drive Allison in there, making it a legitimate tow truck. This is a 2015 bus frame, cheapest air ride control system on the internet. Twin turbos on it, just because we're getting 2 stacks behind the cab. Will it sawzall? Will it bandsaw? The liquid urethane, you can make your own bushings. Look at that, nice kit from Summit. I got my wiring harness back from Billet Performance Manufacturing. This will be a first. Stick around. When you see it at shows, you tell me. All right, so some of you have noticed that the camber and the caster is a little bit off, and that's because of the fire. Each one of these bushings burnt to a crisp, so we need to rebuild the whole front end. We're gonna get most of the parts from Summit. This is a Express 3500 or 4500, not exactly sure. The only thing I do know is that I'm having a hard time finding this lower control arm because of the air ride. None of the pictures that I saw match with anything. And I ordered some bushings in town just real quick because I can bring them back to see if the bushings are replaceable. They aren't. So that is a non-serviceable lower control arm, which means that we're obviously gonna have to service it. So we're gonna tear this thing apart. Should come apart pretty easy because there's only about 20,000 kilometers on it. So let's get into it. The rotors, you can see there's lots of meat on it. They're super rusty just from sitting. The calipers, you can see the rubber. This is the slider and it's not burnt at all. So the calipers are fine. And you can see too, the rubbers are still nice and soft. But regardless, I'm not gonna mess around with brakes. If you can't stop, you might die. So we're gonna change the brakes anyway. It usually works better with 2 people, but don't take the nut off all the way. Otherwise you're gonna get a bar in your chin. We want to put some pressure on it and then just hit it right there. And then it'll snap loose. The nut will stop it from going any farther. There you go. Then you don't wreck your boot, even though this one's wrecked. So that's that. We'll take our upper one. So it works for the upper control arm. When you have 2 people that don't have a camera in their hand, it works better. Let's see if I can do it. Oh! You gotta be careful to spin the nut all the way to the end of the threads, because if it binds because it's rusty, all you'll end up doing is spinning the ball joint inside and then you can't get the nut off. And then you're really gonna be swearing. So these are your camber bolts. So what happens is you rotate this on the sleeve, and what that does is bring this top link in or out. That adjusts your tire, whether it goes positive camber or negative camber. If you have a Miata, you definitely want the negative camber and ride that inside bead. For anybody else, we want them nice and straight. Just each car will be different, but kind of neat to see how that works. I'm out of fuel. Come on. Oh. If I would have cracked the top one and then cracked the bottom one before I disassembled everything, you'd probably be able to get that one, because this is flopping around now. I can't do it, so I'll probably just pop it in the press or do something that way. This back bushing is fine. This front one got a little crispy, so she's a little extra soft. The upper bushings are actually in really good shape. No heat affected those. They must have been covered up by something, whereas those were open. So we'll use this to center the other one because that hole lines up. We're gonna pour our own bushings. We did that with the Audi, and I have one box left over. The liquid urethane, you can make your own bushings. It was super expensive to get all the polyurethane bushings for the Audi, so we ended up pouring our own. So, okay, I need this bushing to stick out past just a hair, so that's about a hair. Put glue, awesome. Then we take this and we center that around the outside. Oh, that's hot. Hot. Awesome. Here, this long bar, and that is a nice tight fit for inside there. So we'll line that up with the other bushing. That'll keep the two bushings straight. We'll have the weight of the control arm sitting down on there. We can pour in there. So that fits nicely around the outside, leaving me just enough of a lip at the bottom here because this is bottomed out against that. We'll take this rod, stick that down in through there. Nice and tight. It's so perfect. Here we go.
All right, super stoked because we got our Detroit steel wheels in, 20-inch with the nice off-white, the cream white. And we got our Cooper Xeon LTZ tires finally to match. They were the only 20-inch tires with the load rating heavy enough to carry the weight of this truck. So the rear tires can handle 3,600 pounds each.
Guys, that wheel is definitely not centered in there. I don't know how I messed that up, but I am smart. I left some extra on the bed so I can move that back almost right to the end actually, because we're gonna have the stake pocket here that's actually gonna hold that thing solid. So we're able to move that back. Good thing I didn't weld anything solid yet. This side is already a little bit better. Now I am gonna drop the fenders down, and in doing so this will continue on and we'll be getting farther away from the tire. Putting this box on is probably one of the last things because we're just gonna weld it to that bar there for the brace. The brace will also go down into the last of the step in front of the tire there, and then same too at the back there. I'm not too worried about that. We're gonna take that off again, run all the brake lines, the fuel lines. We got the wiring harness on the computer back, and we got a pile of goodies from Summit.
So there's the old brakes, all shitty and rusty. There's the new stuff. Look at that. Nice kit from Summit. We have it for 8-bolt lugs now, slotted rotor, and better pads. We've got transmission mount, we've got engine filter, suspension parts. We've got a new alternator here. I opted for the black one so that it doesn't take away from the intake. Otherwise I would have got a chrome one, maybe. We got transmission filter. For inside, we'll take the pan off, make sure there's no chunks in the bottom of that. I got some new filters for the FAST. You can see that laying right there. We'll throw that on, but in the meantime, we gotta take the whole box off again. So I might move the GTO outside or in the trailer. That one's leaving for a bit. And then that'll give me some more space because that thing's taking up a pile of space. Little tech tip, I got lots of room to work here to pull the filters on and off, but if you can't get it, a filter wrench around it, grab a piece of sandpaper and put it around the filter and then grab, you get way more traction. All right, so we got our new filters on our FAST. Guys, just because you have a FAST doesn't mean that you don't have to change your filters. These look pretty much original. Super thin when I put a wrench on it. I cracked them right away.
So this is the older model. It's a titanium, so an FWS 3003 and a FS 1001. You can get these filters off of the Fast website, but I don't think they had the one. They only had the other. They do have a list of filters that match up. So more than likely, this company makes these filters and then they put Fast on it, because there's no reason why a company who specializes in the pumps and filtration system makes their own filters. That'd be silly. So I found these filters, 533005 for a Napa, and the other one matched up to a P55 1001 on a Donaldson. Both of these filters have drains on them, so the water will settle at the filter. You just drain them. Just because you put a Fast on it doesn't mean that's maintenance free. Guys, change your filters. It's very simple and it's not that expensive. Alright, so these are the old shocks. They're junk because they were in the fire. So we got these new ones from Alden. We put Alden on the GTO and super happy with them. We got these because they're adjustable, so you can adjust how soft and how hard of a ride you want, which I thought would be better with our air ride, as we don't have a full air ride system on the truck yet. It's got ball bearings, or like a swivel, on the top and the bottom, which makes a lot more sense for the air ride going up and down. If the angle changes a little bit, it's able to adjust for that. Now, we did have a larger pin in the old shock, which fit in this bracket. So what I'm gonna do, I punched this one out of here, just took the rubber off with a knife and a wire wheel. I'll cut the difference off of the bearing and then cut it in half for the spacing, and then do the same with the bottom, and we've got a nice new shock on the truck. So here we go. Almost ashamed to cover that up, but it's only getting covered up with more beautiful stuff. Once I get the tie rod ends, we'll take it off again, but I want to be able to move it, so. Oh, it's so, man. While we're working on other stuff and sorting parts out, we're gonna get going on the steering. We've got a suspension on there from Summit, a couple small pieces waiting for us at the border. We're just waiting to do a longer run. But I've got my flange from Oshcut, so they laser cut this. Super cool, guys. He's the guy with the Cummins heat pump 24 valve GM that we checked on the road trip back from grabbing the F350, so check them out. What we're gonna do is gonna build our custom headers for our turbos. So our turbos are gonna sit right about here, closer to the front of the engine and about the same height as the intake. What determines where my runners are gonna go for the headers is where my steering shaft goes. And we went to Borgeson for our steering box. They hooked us up with a steering box for the GTO. Beautiful box, nice tight ratio for turning. I gave them the numbers on the old box and they were able to build me another box. So this one I think is a rebuilt unit. If you have a fire in a vehicle, you cannot rebuild that steering box. There's worm gears and something or other. They told me why, and I said, okay, I'm passing that on to you. Don't rebuild a burnt box because you will run into issues. But they gave us the steering box, which is fantastic. More important, they sent us the steering shaft for it. Now this is important too. You can cobble your own little piece of crap together if you want. But if you were ever to get into an accident, the steering columns were a big cause of injury because they don't collapse. So if you grab one from Borgeson, they can match the proper U-joint with the box to the shaft. You tell them what the shaft is going into, which is the C10. So the other U-joint goes to the proper size on the factory steering column on the C10. It's perfect. Now we can mount our box, figure out where our shaft is gonna go, and then build our headers around that. So here we go. Oh, that's so nice. U-joint for the steering column, and then your nice custom spline for your C10. Now all of this will get taken off again. The steering box has to have the pitman arm on it. We're just sizing everything up, making sure that everything's okay. This frame is actually pretty sweet because the engine and transmission are offset towards the passenger, which leaves more room for the steering column. All right, so we got our suspension figured out, we got our steering box in place, and now I've got my steering shaft, which I really need to know my final location on the cab is, where it connects to the column, and start mocking up our exhaust. Then we can start mocking up our turbos and intakes. The radiator should be here soon. Then we can do our intercoolers. And then once those turbos are set up, we'll start bending our actual exhaust. So we're gonna have pretty well a full truck that we can run as is in this state. And then when we're happy with that, then we'll put the cab back on again, make our mounts and figure all that out. So lots to do. Here we go. I hate doing things twice. We did have to get the frame painted for some pictures to show some people. So I didn't remove the sway bar brackets. I'm like, oh, I'll just unbolt it afterwards, right? And again, this is late at night, but I ended up snapping one of the bolts. So I did weld this in front. We'll take this apart now. I'll drill that bolt out, replace the sway bar bushings, and then we're done. It is important, don't rush it. Do it in order, otherwise just do it twice. There we go. Okay, I got my wiring harness back from Billet Performance Manufacturing. Alex is okay, the surgeries went well, he's recuperating and he's back at work, full tilt. So, Alex specializes in yanking out the power strokes, the 6.4s and the 6.0s especially, and swapping them out with Cummins. He likes the 6.7 Cummins, hopefully we'll get to do one of those in the future. He doesn't do a whole pile of Duramax stuff. The wiring harnesses are kind of a pain in the ass to work with, but he built us this one, very happy with it. Basically what you get is a tuned transmission controller. So you would want to send your TCM to him along with your ECM. Looks just like the GMs. And then he put a nice little sticker on there for all the wiring that is loose, so you know exactly what goes where. Also sends an entire book. Tells you all the wires and where they go. Full wiring diagram for every plug and every connector. If you have any doubts about what wire does what, we've got colors, we've got circuit numbers, we've got the functions. Very, very straightforward. Nice, big, easy. Get your fuse box, which is nicely labeled underneath the cover, and extra spades for you to add your own stuff to it if you want. I asked them for my OBD reader so that I can see what's going on, and then we've got a couple powers and grounds. From there we've got leftover wires. Let's see which does the tach, the sensors, the cruise, but other than that everything is nicely labeled. So basically you can tell him I want to keep air conditioning or I don't. He'll add those wires or take them away. I want an output for my fuel pump, which is in there as well, so we can run the wires over to our FAST, which is already relayed and everything, so it's just a straight connection to the fuel pump, and then we're good to go. This is drive-by wire, and that is just a plug with a connector. You can, if you forgot to grab this out of your donor truck, you can grab that from any scrap yard. Hit up Tuesley, he's got lots in the yard. Then we've got our sensors that are not on our main engine harness. So what you saw me pull apart in a time lapse in one of the videos was just the engine harness, which is the injectors, the fuel pressure sensors, and that. This harness that you sent Alex would have the alternator, the air conditioning, the mass airflow, and I think these are air conditioning sensors for the receiver dryer. The only issue that we're having is the MAF, because a mass airflow senses how much air is coming into the engine, so it knows how much fuel to put out. The only issue is we have 2 intakes. We've got 2 turbos and 2 intakes, so I can't split that sensor in half. Reading up, I'm just gonna leave it unplugged, and you really have to watch your meters as to how much smoke is coming out, because you can, if you're heavy on your foot, you will get black smoke. So I'm not a fan of rolling coal, but if you see me rolling coal in this truck, it was an accident until we figure out, or until I get to that point. I'm not gonna worry about it right now. We're just gonna leave that alone. The transmission is very straightforward. We've got a sensor on how fast the front of the transmission is spinning compared to the middle and the end, and then your perdinal down below. These are the issues. It'll go into limp mode if this is spinning faster than this is, and that's what happens when you hop your truck up. And the Allisons are great for the stock setup. If you put too much to the engine, then you're gonna have to do something with your transmission. For now, we're gonna get it running and drive it as is, because like I mentioned before, I don't want to get caught not having them rebuilt and whatever. I want to make sure that it runs and drives and moves first. We'll drive it for the summer, take it easy. Next summer, we'll dig into both. We'll build up the transmission, we'll build up the engine with Northtown Machine, and then basically we'll have a brand new truck. We got our fuel lines hooked up nicely from Grassroots, so we got some nice lines tucked down and below. They're gonna go around around the transmission mount to our fast, to our tank. I'm wondering how to do the tank, because I don't have a catch can there. When you drive forward, all the fuel is going to slosh forward, and then it's going to starve the pump, and then the truck's going to stall out. So I don't know whether we should get a blanket from Holly and put that in the back, or maybe I'll come across another fuel tank. I'm not sure. For now, to fire it up, we'll just put the hoses in a jerry can and the fuel in the return, and then go from there. The intake manifold's getting cut right now, so as soon as those are back, then we can finish running the last of our return lines. I am not putting the Fickum on the valley. That was a quick thought that I had way back. I do know that they have to stay cold. I want to put that in the cab so that we don't have that mess, more stuff cluttering the engine. The only thing is I want to fire it up first and make sure that it revs up and that it's happy before we do that, because I have to lengthen all the wires. If something's not working, then afterwards is something that I did and I mixed up a wire or a bad connection or whatever it is. We'll leave it alone for now. I'm gonna put the main harness underneath here. I think that's fine. The only issue is if we do have a fuel leak, it's gonna run on the wires, but hopefully we don't get to that. We're not gonna worry about that. And then put all of that on the firewall in the cab. We're getting a wiring harness from Painless. It's a nice little kit, same as what we did on the GTO. It's kind of a universal fit to get brake lights, tail lights, reverse lights, headlights, run the wiper control, and our gauges. All right, so we got the cab here. We're basically going to take the glue out of the rail. We'll scuff this down and then we'll paint it white. This will be my quickest paint job ever with a roller and a brush. We'll sand down the front fender a little bit, add a little bit of rust there. I'm really happy with how this kind of turned out, a little bit of leaking and whatnot. Doesn't match 100% to the natural patina there, but I'm happy with it. So here we go. This cab was never really worth fixing. There's a lot of Bondo in this. After painting the GTO, I realized I don't want two vehicles that I'm worried about painting. It's a tow truck. We're just gonna do a quick, make it look presentable, kind of make it match. I don't want another show car. I want to drive something, not worry about the paint. So to paint this thing, we've got some brushes from Canadian Tire. These are $3.99 Canadian. So in American dollars, they would pay you to take these. So this will be a first. Stick around. When you see it at shows, you tell me. Okay, so I think that turned out really good actually. It fits the truck perfect. Now, we got a lot of patina going on. This is fake patina, whereas this is real patina. We had to kind of match the patina on the Dodge box. Again, to clarify, there is no chance of me ever doing this body. We're gonna fix the cab floors up and put new mounts on it. But if I was to paint this truck, I would 100% go down south and buy a body from Arizona. These bodies are too far gone. Too many people have been touching it and trying to do body work incorrectly. To do a shiny paint job on this is not worth the money, and that's not what this truck is. So that leaves it, do I put a patina on the roof or do I leave that nice and clean to match the rims? And I realized that it's less work if I don't do anything to it and I can carry on with my intake and getting it running. So that is the plan. We're gonna go for a natural patina on this. We are gonna be doing just some patchwork in the floor so that there's no holes, there's no water coming up. We are gonna soundproof the inside. If I was ever to do a shiny paint job, or if somebody wanted to do a shiny paint job to it, we could, but I would just replace the body. 90% of the work is gonna be in the frame and the engine anyway. Talking to you guys in the last video about the DG. Overwhelmingly, you guys said get rid of the GMC and put DG on there. And what I was thinking is actually just moving the G over to here and then taking this C and flipping it over and then just making a little D here. That's the extent of my work. I'm not getting a new one's cut. I'm not doing anything. I just figured that would be easier than looking for the M and the least amount of work. Again, the cab is not the focal point of this truck. The focal point is the engine, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and man, does it look cool. These videos have been going on for the better course of about 6 weeks, but we're trying to put them together in a neat little bundle segment at a time. The dual plenum, looks so awesome. The plenums that are on the CNC are turning out great. They're gonna match the dual turbo so nicely, and I'm very excited to show you guys how that's turning out, but you have to stick around for the next video for that one. For now, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Finish your projects, get out there. Remember, if you're not filthy, you're not rich. Build it and drive it. Here we go.